Good morning, everyone. My name is Leah Robinson, and I'm the director of Michigan Athena, and I would like to welcome you to today's event, Embracing Assertiveness, the Power of Balanced Leadership. I'm so excited for you all to hear the dynamic speakers on today's panel and hope you leave with life-changing advice and tips to elevate your own strength and voice in and out of the workplace. Today's programming was inspired by our participants, as many of you requested the Michigan Athena community tackle this tricky topic in our post-event surveys from last year. So we truly hope you enjoy today's discussion. Before we get into it, I'd like to invite you to join in on the conversation in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you're new here, don't feel shy to jump into the action. One of my favorite things about our Michigan Athena community is how lively and uplifting and empowering the conversation is in the chat box. So feel free to put your questions and comments in there, but please make sure you have your chat set to everyone and not just hosts and panelists. Secondly, at the end of our event today, our generous and thoughtful educational sponsor, Davenport University, will be giving away two incredible prizes. First, Davenport will be awarding one of today's attendees with a free opportunity to participate in the university's Certificate of Management program. This program is a life-changing opportunity valued at almost $2,000 where you can discover what your unique leadership style is and learn from industry experts on how to lead and manage others. Davenport will also be providing one scholarship to an individual participating in today's event to attend Michigan Athena's upcoming in-person leadership summit on September 20th at the University Club at MSU here in Lansing. You will see on your screen the opportunity to put your name and contact information into a survey, and we will make sure that the winner of today's prize gets that at the end of today's event. This in-person leadership summit will bring together experts to share their lessons in career advancement and help inspire you to elevate yourself, your brand, and your leadership identity. With tons of networking opportunities and even free headshots, you will not want to miss today's giveaway. Make sure you stay tuned for the end of the webinar to hear if you've won one of Davenport's incredible prizes. Lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors have been so integral to Michigan Athena's ability to provide free resources to Michigan women, no matter the location or industry. Our team is so thankful for our committed and dedicated sponsors and their belief in the Athena mission. I would specifically like to thank our diamond sponsor, Lake Trust, our presenting sponsor, Consumers Energy, our gold sponsors, Amerisure, Hastings Mutual Insurance Company, and Perigo, our silver sponsors, Ice Mountain and Lansing Board of Water and Light, our supporting sponsors, CATA and West Shore Bank, and of course, our educational sponsor, Davenport University. Again, thank you for your contribution and support. I'm now going to welcome our diamond sponsor, Lake Trust, and their Senior Vice President of Member Engagement and Business Development, Teresa Dubiel, to kick off today's event.
Thank you, Leah. Lake Trust Credit Union is proud to be the silver sponsor for this series that empowers women and connects leaders. At Lake Trust, we continue to lift one another, empower well-being in our communities with our members and our team members, and look for ways to multiply positive impact with our partners. Throughout this series, the topics, presenters, and panelists have shared inspirational nuggets that apply both in our career and our personal life. We are proud of our sponsorship with Michigan Athena and the Michigan Chamber and our ongoing impact that we can make together. You'll see Lake Trust out in communities throughout Michigan. We are eager to advance the well-being of families and businesses. Let us know how we can help you. We're here to serve, and I'm sure today's panelists will be dynamic. Please enjoy all of the nuggets that they share with us that will inspire our future. At this time, I'm going to pass it to Angela Tompkins with Consumer Energy.
Teresa, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It is certainly an honor and a pleasure for me to be with you all today, particularly for this topic. And so I just want to give a sincere and heartfelt thank you to the Michigan Chamber for the Athena series. And today's topic, embracing assertiveness and the power of balanced leadership, is something that is extremely important to me in my leadership journey, certainly something that has been difficult for me to own and navigate. And I'm so thrilled that we're having an honest conversation and that we're having a conversation that will give all of you an opportunity to take some tips, tools, and resources that you can incorporate into your leadership and your journey as you continue to move forward. So again, to the Michigan Chamber for hosting this, and for all of the other sponsors for your support and helping make sure that this conversation happens. And so as I reflect on my own leadership journey and think about assertiveness and the balance that's required in leadership, assertiveness has a lot of connotations that come along with it, particularly if you are one of many underrepresented identities. If you're identify as a female, if you are a person that identifies as one of the BIPOC community, many underrepresented identities, assertiveness is not necessarily something that people look at as a great skill, but for others, it's something that's awesome. And so we're going to have some conversation today about how to lean into that. It may look different for every single person. And I think that is what you should take away from the discussion today. How do you incorporate what you're learning from everyone else's journey and make it your own? Standing in your authenticity and your truth is ultimately what is going to make you the best leader. And sometimes you do have to be assertive. Sometimes you do need to push. Sometimes you do need to take a stand for things. And that is nothing wrong with that. And so how do you do that while remaining true to the essence of who you are, is what I would encourage you to do as you're listening to the discussion today. And so at Consumers Energy, we have built a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy just around that principle of being bold and unapologetic, creating space for everyone to be themselves. And so I am super excited today to be able to announce the perfect person to moderate this panel today. From her beginnings as a strong and accomplished person in PR and politics, TV news, serving now as a senior community affairs manager with us at Consumers Energy. I have the awesome pleasure to work alongside Jessica Tramontana, and she will also share, the fierce advocate that she is for helping others grow and develop in their careers. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce to you all my friend and coworker, who has spent the last several days helping serve and feed over 2,000 of our customers who were without power due to the recent storm damage that left many without power. So Jessica, I know you are probably tired, but you made it a point to be here today. And so that is her heart, that is who she is, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Jessica Tramontana.
Thank you so much, Angela, and good morning to everyone. I appreciate leadership like Angela and the example she leads, and empowering really our employees to find their authenticity, as she mentioned. So I'm Jessica Tramontana. I'm the Senior Community Affairs Manager at Consumers Energy. I cover the Lansing region. So that's Eaton, Ingham, Ionia, and Clinton counties. And if you've been watching the weather at all, you know the amazing crews that I have been working with that have been busy throughout the week and weekend to restore power to many residents who were hit hard by Thursday's storm. So I am so honored to be with you today. I'm so excited to introduce this incredible panel of women today. I'm going to say each panelist's name and their title, and then let them provide a self-intro. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we have Becky O'Connell. Becky is the Government Affairs Manager at Lake Trust. Becky.
Thank you. It's great to be here today with all of you.
Thanks so much, Becky. Now we have Sarah Hubbard. She is a principal at Acuitas. Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. I'm Sarah Hubbard, as she mentioned. I've been with Acuitas for over 10 years, but before that, I have a long history of working in the Chamber of Commerce industry. So I worked for the Detroit Regional Chamber for almost 20 years, was on political legislative staff before that, but have been helping run my own business with a business partner who also has a chamber background and worked at the Michigan Chamber. My partner did. So really looking forward to talking with everyone today and helping share my insights and my career and how I've gotten to this point. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Love your perspective, and I'm so excited to hear more. Now I want to introduce Danielle Robinson. Danielle is the Assistant Vice President of Corporate Philanthropy at Jackson National Life Insurance Company. Danielle.
Good morning. It's good to be with everyone. Jackson is a financial services company. Our purpose is to help Americans achieve financial freedom for life. My role with the company is to look after all of our corporate giving, employee volunteer programs, and also our ESG reporting.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your introduction. So let's go ahead and get to it. I want to throw a question out. I'm going to call on someone to answer it, and I want to make sure everyone on the panel feels included in this conversation. So after the person that I call on answers, if you feel like you have something to share, please feel free to chime in. So let's go to Becky first. Becky, what does being a confident leader mean to you, and why is that trait of confidence in leadership important?
Well, I would say confidence in leadership might not always be defined by having the clearest path, right? You've got to be able to listen and take that input into consideration before maybe, charting that course. It's funny. So prior to working at Lake Trust, I worked in the legislature. And, in that role, you're always challenging the status quo because you're changing laws, right? And you're solving community problems. However, in the private sector, it is maybe the opposite. The hardest thing to do is to challenge the status quo. And so that courage to innovate, right, and speak up, I would say thinking outside the box is definitely something that I think a confident leader needs.
I love that. Sarah or Danielle, anything to add?
I agree, Becky, that confidence can look different kind of job to job and person to person. I think back in my own life of leaders that I have seen who were so confident, but looked very different. Like I think of the late Kelly Rossman McKinney and how she was bold and outspoken and so perfectly suited to lead her own PR firm. But then I think of another woman, Karen Bussey, who is the founder and director of Mother Teresa House, hospice house in downtown Lansing. She is gentle, but direct and so passionate for their mission. And it just, kind of goes to show that confidence can look different, but really when we're each authentically ourselves, that's what confidence, looks like.
Oh, Sarah, I think you're muted.
Oldest trick in the book. When a confident leader leads, people follow. And so they really feel and believe in your confidence and build a sense of trust with you. And, a lot of people, as mentioned, they build that confidence in different ways, but it's so important to express that in your authentic way, as said earlier, but through a lot of different actions. And I know we'll get into it more with future questions, but it's so important to find a way to have that confidence in a way that's really yours.
I love that sense of ownership. And Sarah, that is the perfect segue into our next question. Could you go ahead and tell me, how do you show up and really own who you are and know your value?
That part about knowing your value is very important for all of us, and especially important in what I do now. So I have a consulting firm. We specialize in government relations, and I have to know my value every day because our clients are relying on me to really work for them. And I have to be sure that I'm valuing myself and our business properly to have a really strong relationship with our client. And understanding that is something that, I was slow to really understand what my value is to the public, to our clients, and to others. But it's something where you have to really have some perspective on what you do to be able to talk to others about what value you bring so you can get their perspective as well. I think we all have a way of, toiling away in our silos and just thinking getting our job done is our value. But really, your value often is much, much bigger than what you actually understand yourself. And you have to always be asking yourself and others for more and expressing exactly and asking, for instance, to be compensated for exactly what your value is. And knowing that is something that I think we all can grow through.
That's
Sarah,
wonderful.
I love
Thank you so
that.
much.
And I'll just jump in to say, I agree. Knowing your own value is an important component. And I have this quote I love from Saint Joan of Arc. And if you guys will just kind of drop her into history with me, remember, she was, of course, a woman, a teenager. She infiltrated the French army because she believed God was calling her to do this. And she led them to this momentous victory in the 100 Years' War. And she has this wonderful quote that I just love. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. And I think it just points to this sort of authentic factor in confidence that we each have a divine purpose, something we were placed here to do, and the world would be less if we didn't do it. And for many of us, that means our, kind of the combination of our spouse and also our career or vocation, work that we're sort of uniquely suited for, that we're called to do. And when we're living that purpose, we are our best selves. My mom always reminds me, Danielle, you can only be Danielle, and the world needs you to be Danielle. So I say to myself, okay, I was born for this.
Danielle, you gave me tingles. I I couldn't agree more, right? Like identifying the why of what you're doing and then sharing that, right? It removes all those assumptions out of the way. I always say it's my fuel for the day, right? And finding what is going to keep me going through that day, and what am I going to accomplish? So I agree with you.
Fabulous perspective. Danielle, I love that quote. And I saw a lot of people in the chat also kind of echoed that. Someone put goosebumps, and I kind of felt the same. So thanks for sharing that. Next question goes to Danielle. Danielle, can you share a time that you were assertive in a situation and how that worked out for you?
Yes, I started at Jackson when I was 21, the week after I graduated from Michigan State. And in all those years that I have been with the company, I have been promoted 5 times, which means about every 3.5 years, if you're doing the math. And every time I have been promoted, I have asked for that position by name, come with a list of reasons why I was the most capable, qualified, the results I had produced to demonstrate that I was really the best candidate for the job. And then I have done something that I call being patiently persistent. Not letting anyone forget that that's what I was after and what I wanted, but also knowing that things take time and change takes time. And so I guess I just share that to share that, my ability to be assertive has allowed me to build a beautiful team of 6 of us now who do philanthropy full time for Jackson across the country. It's helped me build the career of my dreams and really just given me all the runway I've needed.
Love that. Sarah or Becky, anything to add? And, I'd be curious too on your perspective, because I think sometimes you're in a bind, right? As a woman, sometimes being assertive isn't always perceived as the most positive. So I love patiently persistent. Becky or Sarah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'd love to share a kind of an anecdote of how I can, maybe it's even a tip for those, how I use my assertiveness. Anybody who knows me knows I'm assertive everywhere I go. So it's not a matter of being assertive at any particular time. But one thing I've noticed since COVID that has persisted is the number of meetings I have, the number of Zoom meetings in particular that I have that are just constant and fill my schedule. And so I have learned to be particularly assertive about how I use my time and how I participate in those meetings. Now, some meetings, oops, my legs just went off. Some meetings, some meetings are ones that I don't have control over. And so I'm, more of a participant. But for meetings that I lead or that I do have control over, I have decided that they will be more than just an opportunity to report out. When I can, I insist that everybody in a meeting I'm in comes to the meeting having already been prepared with the things that we could have said by email. So if you have a presentation for me or for those of us in the meeting, you must send it to me 24 hours ahead of time, because I'm not going to spend time in a meeting walking through and listening to a presentation. If you have something you could tell me in an email, like your bio, your background, or the update on whatever you've done since we met last week, please send it to me in an email, because then we can talk about what the next steps are. Meetings should never be for reporting out. Meetings should be for looking at what comes next, solving problems as a team, and talking to each other about things. And that's where it's had a very, very significant impact on my time. And the second part to that is, when I can, a meeting should never be more than 30 minutes. Unless you have a good reason, and there are lots of reasons that are good, like you have a very long agenda or you have a really thorny problem to deal with. But in my life, I usually figure if you can't get it done in 30 minutes, then we need 2 meetings, or we need to do more prep work for that meeting. Because when we come together, we are getting together to solve a problem and go to the next stage. Otherwise, send it to me in an email.
Sarah, I love that. That's awesome perspective. Becky, anything you want to add?
Well, I do love Sarah highlighting time management. I think that is a very important aspect of busy working women, right? And being able to manage all that and balance it, and how important that role is.
Yeah, I think running an effective meeting, Sarah, what a great, easy way to practice confidence. Oh my gosh, and a gift to everyone included in the meeting. Great idea.
How many memes have we seen where it says, should this be an email?
Yeah.
I could.
You only have to, in a couple times, kind of walk out of a meeting, really, if you feel confident enough to do it, or to really say as it begins, next time we're going to do this differently. And people appreciate it. And especially, we didn't mention, but I'm on the board of the University of Michigan. I'm a regent. So a lot of people want to brief me on their issues, and I'm used to being the one briefing other people. And when they come to me with a briefing that I know is not adequate, I let them know how it could be better, because I don't want them wasting my time next time.
That's probably valuable feedback too, right? And I think sometimes that's the challenge, is to get constructive feedback. Fabulous. Well, thank you, ladies. All right, moving to our next question. So Becky, your turn. Why do you believe that when women are in a commanding presence, or, a leadership role, why are they sometimes viewed in a negative light? And have you any personal experiences or instances that you can draw on and really cite what you did to overcome that?
Well, yes, every day. But I do think that, I was thinking about this question a little bit, and the opposite of being assertive or aggressive is passive, right? And to Sarah's point, if we were all passive, we wouldn't be very efficient at our jobs. And so, really, what is that? How do we identify what is that middle ground? And honest, frank communication is kind of what I settled on. So how do we have an honest conversation without offending anybody? And I think it goes back to what we already talked about a little bit, which is stating the why, or what you're trying to accomplish. For Sarah, she just said, I want to have an efficient meeting because I have got 50 things on my calendar that I've got to get done, right? And so by expressing the why, right, it removes those assumptions, and we're able to, move on to the next task.
I like that. It's not only identifying a problem, but really a solution. Now, Danielle, Sarah, anything you guys want to add to that?
I was thinking of a time early in my career, maybe the second year I was at Jackson. And this maybe was not so much related to being female as it was to being young, but we'll see. I had this, the head of our department called me into his office to give me some feedback he had gotten from our senior management team. And the feedback was that I was coming across as very young, overly friendly, and really generally just very blonde. And so he wanted me to know that. This feedback, it hurt. It was so embarrassing. And it was also just like, I felt like a personal attack on me and who I am. But of course, after I got over the initial shock of that feedback, I realized I had a choice to make. And the choice was, if I wanted to be successful at Jackson, I could address the feedback and I could, kind of internalize it, or not, or not. And I loved Jackson. I still love Jackson. And it was like, I wanted to be here. And I think what I've learned over time is that he wasn't asking me to change who I am. He was showing me how to fit into a company that was so much bigger than me, and how to kind of earn my place in this company by demonstrating consistent performance for many years. And I would say today, it would not surprise me to learn that other people in the company think I'm a little bit different than our usual Jackson employee. And they kind of enjoy that difference about me, and it's a differentiator, but certainly I had to earn my way to that.
Yeah, I think that your point about earning your way is something that's so important for us. We have to earn respect, but we have to earn trust as well. And there are a lot of ways that happens. It's by showing up. It's by, doing what you said you're going to do, by following through on things. But it's also some of those other things, as you mentioned, that we don't have a uniform that we wear to the office like a lot of men do, right? We have to be a little more creative. But your attire and your appearance to the outward world, and I have this discussion with young women I talk to a lot, is really critically important. And you may feel like, oh, I don't want to dress like my mom or whatever. And my older sisters tell me in my early 20s, I don't know why you dress so conservatively. You dress like 50 something. And I dressed exactly then like I dress now, which is pretty conservatively, but for respect. When I am in a business situation, I command and I expect respect, and I give that to other people too. And I show that through my appearance as much as I possibly can without being, 100% Talbots, right? But I think it's so important. It's so hard to hear sometimes, especially when you're young. But I was probably more conservative in my appearance and my demeanor when I was in my early 20s, even than I am now as a more established professional. And I think it's just so important, and it has paid off for me over the years because I feel like I get the respect that I think I deserve.
Yeah. And Danielle, I
You're
think
so
you touched
right.
on something really important too, is to take feedback in a constructive way. And sometimes that's not always easy. It's a blow to the ego, right? I was talking with someone who was a senior level at consumers, and they said, did you ever notice in meetings you just get right to the agenda? You never say, how are you doing? How's your family? And I'm like, you're right, I do. Because I'm always like, I don't want to waste people's time. Like I'm in a meeting with Sarah Hubbard and I don't want to recap stuff. I want to get to it. But taking that valuable feedback and implementing it and really kind of reflecting on why you do what you do and how you might be able, or appearing to others, is really valuable. So I appreciate all your thoughts on that. Sarah, you're the next question. So, what are your thoughts on how we might be able to change the narrative, either inside or outside of the workplace, that women being assertive sometimes has a negative connotation?
Yeah, well, I think we are changing the narrative. And I think that we've seen it particularly in recent years with the Me Too movement and some of those kinds of efforts where women have really come together and done things. I think we are changing the narrative. I think it's important for us to continue to stay focused on those goals. But I think at what point do we reach that point where it's not about women anymore? I'm often asked to join groups about women, do things for women. I'm happy to do it. And I think it's important to support other women. I think it's one of the most important things I can do. But I also don't want to be pigeonholed into those groups. I think the way to continue moving forward is to push our way into those areas that aren't just about women. But I'm also very self-aware about some of these things. Men need to have their good old boys network to some extent as well. I mean, I don't want a bunch of men going shopping with me, to be honest, just like they don't want me necessarily going with them to the cigar bar. And I know there are lots of women out there who will enjoy the occasional cigar, but I think we have to respect the differences that we each have, while also integrating the places where we truly must work together and must find those things. And to somebody who mentioned in the chat, shouldn't we be challenging the focus on appearance? I'm not saying that you shouldn't be that there should be a single-minded focus on appearance, but of the things you can control, for instance, your appearance, for instance, and what you're wearing, or your professionalism, I don't think anybody would discount the fact that you shouldn't show up in a sweatsuit for a board meeting. You should be aware of what the culture is of the place you're going, and be making sure that you're respected and taken seriously in that environment, and your appearance is the first impression you're going to give. And it's going to be really hard for you to undo that first impression if the first impression that you're messy, you're disorganized, you're not available, you're not trustworthy. If your first impression due to your appearance comes off as that, it's going to take a long time for you to unwind that. Now, there are lots of other things about appearance, that are not, negotiable, that you're not going to be able to get into, that people shouldn't be having biases related to those kinds of things. But I'm saying the things that you can easily control, you should.
Sarah, I think you are right about appearance, not to get off topic, but I think it is a sign of respect to the people you're with that you have dressed properly for the occasion, that you have done your hair, that you have spent a few minutes thinking about how you will be in their presence. It's a sign of respect to them. And so I think, yeah, all the better. On the topic of kind of how to change the narrative or kind of address issues related to this, I think I always go back to this advice that if you have a specific issue with a specific person, handle it directly. So if you've had something come up in the past that a person in your life is treating you in a way that you feel is disrespectful to you, like you got to handle it head on with them. And I would definitely encourage you to do that. But thinking more broadly about what we can all do is really, I think, setting the example by leading ourselves with confidence, and in addition to all the kind of traditional traits of confidence that you might think of, being bold and sharing your perspective, et cetera, I also think the flip of that is being willing to really listen to other people, being willing to be wrong sometimes, and even to let someone else take the credit once in a while. These are signs of true maturity and confidence. And I think something that when we all practice, we really give permission to other women to do the same.
Danielle, I love that perspective. Sometimes I think it's tough when you're juggling a lot, whether it's professionally, personally, to always feel like your best self. And I think that burden is on women a lot more than men. My husband can throw himself into a shower and be in a suit in 10 minutes. And for me, I'm still struggling with my hair and outfit and shoes and the whole shebang. So, I think your points are great. I also think sometimes, at least for me, I feel like we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace to be authentic, to be real, to do our best, and to sometimes recognize, what? I say that to my kids all the time. This is my best. Mom is doing her best. And sometimes that has to be good enough. Becky, anything you want to add? I want to make sure we rope you into the conversation.
Yeah, I would just add a little bit that, sometimes our greatest allies in overcoming challenges are men, to Sarah's point, right? Like, we have to have safe spots for women, but don't be afraid to reach out to a male colleague for help, right? And really sharing the dynamic of a situation or asking for recommendations. As Danielle pointed out, that feedback that you get will be so valuable in, determining and charting your course to success.
I think Jessica might have froze.
I think so.
I did freeze. I'm sorry. I thought it was Becky at first, and then I realized I'm the problem. Becky, did you have a chance to finish? I'm sorry.
I did, yes. And
Okay.
I would also just add to, when we do our work with joy, that is contagious, right? And we are going to positively affect everyone around us. I worked in a mentorship program at Lake Trust, and helping mentor is always a great way to grow yourself. And one of the lessons that my mentee and I explored was something called emotional wake. And I don't know if you guys have ever explored this topic, right? But it's the theory that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are going to leave a wake behind you, right? It's going to be incumbent upon you to determine if it's going to be positive or negative, right? And that's something that we have the ability to control. And so she and I just still years later are reflecting on that and laughing, because it's just that self-awareness, that I think makes us all better when we understand what emotional wake we're leaving in our trail.
You guys have just had some amazing perspective, and I value everything that you've added to the conversation. Gosh, I forgot the last question that I directed at. I just feel like I got swept up in this conversation. So again, really appreciate that. Becky, can you tell me a little bit about self-awareness? You've touched on this a little bit, and I just love to hear more about how you think playing a role in developing assertiveness, how that's connected with that self-awareness, and really what tangible steps can women take to enhance their self-awareness, and how that really will kind of roll up to the impact of their leadership or communication style?
Yeah, there's one little rule I live by, and it's teach, not tell. And I started that in the legislature when I worked in policy, because, it's a very fast-paced environment, and you are kind of running quickly and, often not communicating clearly. And so, again, teaching in the sense of like, why are we doing this and what are the goals we're trying to accomplish, as opposed to just kind of barking out orders or instructions, right? And I think that is just a key element to that self-awareness and helping others understand why you might be sharing what you are.
That's great. Sarah or Danielle, anything you wanted to build on that?
I think self-awareness is something you learn over the course of your career. It's something you get based on feedback from others. I think it's also important to ask others for constructive feedback. And I know you talked a bit about it, Danielle, and you may have received it in an unsolicited way, but I have, some folks in my life who come to me frequently and say, I really like your help. Give me constructive feedback. Tell me what I could do better. And being able to provide them both really positive feedback about their strengths and constructive feedback about where they can do better, I think is really important that you look for that in your life, as well as sharing that with others.
Yeah, I like that idea of imitation is the best form of flattery. So when I'm ever kind of stumped about something or wondering how to proceed, I look around at all of the strong leaders in my life, the people I really respect, who I've seen get great things done, really accomplish a lot. And I just look at how they operate. I pay attention to how do they interact in meetings? Are they showing up on time and ready to go? Have they read all the materials? Are they, way behind in their email, or are they like up to speed and know what's going on? I pay attention to how they interact with other people and just really work to collaborate and bring people in to get the best possible solution. And yeah, you don't have to, become them, but I've certainly tried out some leadership techniques by taking a look at what other people are doing.
Jessica, I'd like to point out somebody put what I thought was a pretty good question in the chat too, which is how can people be assertive when they're by nature not necessarily assertive? And that could be, someone who's a bit more introverted or something. And if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of take a shot at that. Maybe that could be something we could talk about as well.
Absolutely. I think it's a very thoughtful question, and I would love to hear your insights on that.
Being someone who was born this way, it's been something I've had to learn to really value and understand those who are less, I wouldn't necessarily call them assertive, but maybe not as vocal as I am, maybe a bit more introverted, and really appreciate and understand what our introverts of the world bring to the table. And they're so much more thoughtful frequently than I am. They're much more willing to, process and then come back with a really strong response or answer to a problem that we may be working on solving. And I think my view on it is it's not that they need to be more assertive in that way. It's that their assertiveness comes through their follow through in their communication, maybe in different ways, in their one-on-one meetings that can be so important, where that person might not feel as comfortable in a big group meeting sharing their perspective or sharing their concerns, but can follow up later. And that kind of assertiveness is every bit as important as the person who's dominant in a meeting and can, be at that person who's really chirping in on every particular issue. So I certainly wouldn't want to discount. It's just a different kind of assertiveness and a different way to get it across to everybody.
Sarah, I think you're right about they can certainly shine in the sort of one-on-one, and taking the time to prep properly and have meetings ahead of time to get prepared for a big meeting. That's really effective and is a great way to set yourself up to be confident. I also sometimes use this tactic of choosing carefully when I want to leave my lane. So like I'm definitely seen as the expert at Jackson when it comes to community and philanthropy. I'm not seen as the expert when it comes to human resources, legal, finance, IT, everything else under the sun. And so I just speak with abandon on philanthropy. You know, at any time I insert myself. But on those other topics, I choose carefully that I am going to add real value when I offer an opinion or an idea to someone else that really is the expert on that, and thinking, you know, that we don't have to feel pressure to give our opinion about everything in order to be confident. You know, if you can add real value, that's excellent. But just to be confident for, you know, the sake of being outspoken is just, you know, it doesn't add value and it doesn't really respect the people in your life who are those experts.
Yeah, I would add to a great tool to capture, you know, the thoughts of all of those different personalities is Mural. And I don't know if you guys have ever used Mural or a tool like it. I was part of an innovation collaborative, and it really allowed everyone to have a voice with something as easy as a sticky note, like a virtual sticky note. But yeah, check it out if you've never used it. It's a great platform.
Fabulous. I know we have questions, so I do want to draw us to the chat. If anyone who is tuned in wants to ask a question of the panel, feel free to throw that in the chat. The chamber is working to compile all those questions, and I'll ask the panelists. So I also want to draw attention to everyone. We've had quite a few recommendations for the book Quiet by Susan Cain. So it sounds like it's pretty profound and impactful for a number of people. So just want to share that in case anyone hasn't seen that in the chat. I think we have one more question for our panelists before we go to the rest of questions that have been thrown out by participants on the panel. So I want to throw this as our jump ball. So whoever wants to take this, feel free. What's one piece of advice that you would share or reiterate before the end of today? Something you really want to drive home and impart on all the people who tuned in.
No one knows your value like you do. You know better than anyone else what you can contribute and provide. And you have to ask thoughtfully and politely for what you want, because no one knows if you don't tell them.
Let's say you need to
Amazing.
wrap your assertiveness in diplomacy. You have to listen as much as or more than being assertive. But, you know, some people have mentioned in the chat here concern about how to be assertive in delivering bad news and being direct and being assertive without being taken the wrong way. And for me, it's that diplomatic approach that I've tried to cultivate in my life, so that when I am asking, you know, say a policymaker a very direct question or giving them information that may not be what they want to hear, that I lead up to that with something that I would consider, you know, to be a positive or to be very diplomatic in how I frame it. And for me, that's a way to offset any, you know, that line where assertiveness might become aggressiveness, and that is taken the wrong way.
Becky, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm taking notes on all this good advice I'm getting over here as I'm trying to formulate other things. I love that, Sarah, diplomacy, wrapping it into diplomacy or smoothing out those edges, right? So important. I would say, you know, two things. One is there will be hurdles, right? And so know that those are going to be there and don't give up, right? So it's, what is your strategy to get over the hurdle? And they are going to be at every point in what you're trying to accomplish. And that's, you know, whether you're working inside the Capitol building or out in the private sector. So I would say that is, you know, really important, just not to give up. And then also mentor, you know, we are all resilient, right? I mean, we're here. And so to Danielle's point, right, we have that to offer. We've all lived those experiences, and mentor, you know, younger women, as Sarah mentioned, and give them your best advice, right? Seek them out. You know, if you see something, why not have a conversation or invite them to a cup of coffee? I think we really, you know, need to make that effort to support each other.
I think that is so valuable. And, you know, it's something I think is important is to seek mentors as well, not only to mentor younger generations, but also ask for feedback from seasoned veterans at work who have been through the trenches, that know perspective, they know how to navigate different challenges or sticky circumstances. So I think that's a really, really good point, Becky. I want to take it now to questions. We have about a little bit more than 10 minutes left, about 11 minutes left. So we want to make sure we answer some panelist questions. So I'm going to throw this out here. This is another one of my jump balls. It says, any tips on how to prove that you are highly qualified?
Or shall I start? I can see you're about ready to jump in. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, proving you're highly qualified typically comes from the experience you have, and the life you've lived and the things you bring to the table. But I think proving you're highly qualified comes from developing a sense of trust with somebody, that they believe in you, that they have confidence in you, and that they understand in the way that you're communicating and that you're providing feedback to them. And then they hear it from you. It's not something you're only going to get from your resume. Certainly your resume is part of that, as you're just perhaps applying for a job or something like that and showing you're qualified. But along those lines, I do see some people make mistakes when they're trying to prove they're highly qualified by not aligning the right qualifications to the listener's needs. You need to be sure that when you're trying to be sure someone knows you're qualified, what is it that they need to know you're qualified for? People don't always bring forth the qualities in themselves that are what the listener needs to hear.
Yeah, good points. And I think it's, consistent results over time. You have to just appreciate it takes time and consistency for people to gain trust, as Sarah was saying, but also to know you're qualified. Sometimes you just have to prove it with time.
Yeah, it was funny, even before we got started here today, right? We are not always our own best self-advocates. Like we just are not, we're too busy, right? I don't have time to post that on LinkedIn. Oh my gosh. But you have to do that, unfortunately. And don't be afraid to share your worth, as Danielle said, and don't be afraid. You don't get what you don't ask for. So if you don't ask, it's never going to happen. Danielle highlighted that earlier. So I think those third-party endorsements, don't hesitate to ask for a letter of recommendation, right? Have a file of those ready to go. Be prepared for whatever might come next.
I love that. And I think even something I've kind of found through trial and error is metrics. If you faced a challenge, how you navigated that, what you did to problem solve, and then any outcome that you can prove from that. And I think a lot of people are thirsty for results and say, okay, well, what happened then? So, having that is a great tool in your toolbox. So our next question is specifically for Danielle. So Danielle, this one's targeted at you. For those of us facing the issue of being young in the workplace, what are some tricks that we can use to act or appear more mature?
Yeah, I think professionalism is key. And so professionalism will be different depending on your place of employment and sort of the work you do in the community where you're showing up. Because it is, I think, not really always appropriate to be in a suit. I think there's plenty of times when it's more appropriate to be more casual. But I think I go back to that advice I gave earlier of look around at some people who've been successful in your organization, who you respect, who you have seen get great results and really achieve a lot, and think about what they're doing. Really make a careful study of what they're doing. How are they setting up meetings? What are they doing ahead of meetings? How do they, join those meetings? Like kind of pay attention to them. Meet with them if you want. Ask them for a meeting. People are always flattered to be asked to meet and kind of offer their ideas and suggestions. But I think, Sarah's point to bring up the idea of attire and how you present yourself at work, especially as a young employee, is very important. And I think I would specifically encourage everyone to use a little modesty in your dress at work. Be careful of cleavage and legs. Even myself as a woman, I find it's very distracting. And so I just think we don't want people to be distracted from our point. We want them to know our brain and our hearts, maybe not the rest. So, do you help them from being distracted by kind of dressing a little bit more modestly and more professionally? I think that is definitely worth doing. And let me just say one more thing about that. I am a really big fan of thrift shopping. If you find professional attire to be way too expensive, so does everyone else. Go, check out Volunteers of America, St. Vincent de Paul. I mean, you're helping to contribute to a good cause, you're reducing waste, but you can also build up a beautiful wardrobe that, helps you feel professional in the workforce without spending much money.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Okay,
I send a lot of stuff. I send a lot of stuff to those thrift shops. So yes,
See?
I
There
just
you
want
go.
to add something to that.
Yeah, I pick up your clothes, Sarah, too. I mean, my best blazers all came from Goodwill, so it really is
Yeah.
a great spot to find good things.
I had a favorite in my early 20s, but something I would add, and something I did that I think can help provide leadership training in a way that's free and that is really important, is to join nonprofits and community organizations. What you find is that they are very hungry for young people to engage in those organizations. And you may have an opportunity to rise quickly in a nonprofit or a local community organization, to be on the board, to be in a leadership position, to be calling those meetings to order, to be running those meetings, to be running projects. And it's a way to not only give back to your community, but really get those important leadership skills without having to do it, through a leadership training program at work or those kinds of things, but to do it with people that you want to be with and you want to spend time with. I did that early in my career. My passion is the University of Michigan. I was the president of the University of Michigan Club of Lansing when I was still in my mid-20s, because that's something I knew and I was comfortable in that space and got involved quickly and was able to kind of run events, run fundraisers, do all sorts of things that weren't opportunities that I had in the workplace, but were things that I absolutely could do in my free time for free to get that experience.
I echo Sarah's comments. Volunteering is a key. It can open so many doors for you. I did the same when I was younger. I had extra time, and so I would volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. And, this year I'm helping co-chair their annual event, right? And this is 20 years later, and incorporating it into some of the things that we do here at Lake Trust, right? To help empower them in what they're doing all over our state. So I agree. It will, and also sticking with it, right? It will always give you more than you are giving it, right? And so I agree with Sarah on that.
Love it. Thank you, ladies. Next question. What is the best advice for someone who has trouble receiving constructive criticism?
Nobody really wants to hear it. Let's be honest. So no, I think that you're in that same boat, and to do your best to learn from it and not internalize it. I know some people have said here, they lose sleep over these difficult conversations. You're not alone in that case. I think all of us do. And that kind of constructive criticism is sometimes just criticism, whether it's constructive or not. It may feel like it's just criticism, and we all get it, I guess. And I think I think we all need to just do our best and move on. I don't think there's any easy answer to that. I think it's just, no, you're not alone.
I think in the moment, one thing that has really helped me is beginning to take notes rather than just staring directly at the person giving me this very hard feedback that is crushing my soul. I start to write it down and gives myself some time and space. And then I also, like Sarah saying, I kind of realize later, this happens to everyone. It's my choice if I take it or not. It's my choice if I give that, feedback weight or not. And it does get easier with time.
I think establishing the action items helps you redirect your energy, right? From, receiving the information. Okay, I've received it. What are my actionable points that I can take from this? And then focus on those. That would be my best recommendation.
I love it. I think we have time for one more question. We have 1 minute left. So let's do a speed fire round. Who has been your favorite boss and what made them a good leader to you? So what attributes of your best boss really made a difference? Sarah, let's start with you.
When I worked at the Detroit Regional Chamber, a guy named Dick Blouse was the CEO at the time, and he was a great boss. He was able to give me advice about how to do my job better. He gave me opportunities to be a leader. He gave me feedback when I didn't take notes in meetings and I forgot to do things. Yeah, I take notes now in meetings, things like that. He was a boss who was truly trying to help me grow and thrive, and did just that.
Wonderful. Danielle.
I've had a lot of great bosses, still have a lot of great bosses at Jackson, but in my early interning days, I worked at the Michigan Department of Education in their public information office, and Marty Ackley was my boss. And what was great about him is he taught me the inverted pyramid, how to write for PR. And he also gave me this great advice. When I started my full-time job at Jackson, he said, look around for opportunities for what the business really needs. Look for problems that they're trying to solve. And if you can help contribute, do it. And it was just great advice. And it's definitely how I built a career here.
Marty Ackley is definitely a beautiful angel. Thanks for that. Becky, what do you
I
have?
think Senator John Prose, and he is so compassionate, empowered you to know that like you're the power to lead your team. And now, you know, I sit in meetings and I'm with all my interns who are doing similar jobs around the entire state of Michigan. So yeah, hopefully we helped contribute to them, but instilling that it was, you know, your responsibility to help them on their path to success.
Well, I need to wrap. I want to thank all of you so much. This amazing panel of women is humbling to talk to you. I appreciate your insight and your time and your thoughts. Thank you so much on behalf of the Chamber for doing this panel. And now I want to throw it over to Becky Burka.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Becky Burka, and I'm the Vice President of Member Engagement at the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. We hope that you found today's conversation enlightening and motivating, knowing that you're not alone in making sure your voice is heard and respected in and out of the workplace. The Michigan Athena family sincerely appreciates the time and effort our moderator and panelists have taken to help make this discussion this morning as valuable as possible. So thank you to everyone. So many of you are attending today, you're proud members of the Michigan Chamber, and for that I say thank you. Our members are the center of everything that we do at the Chamber, and our sole mission is to help Michigan businesses succeed. If you're interested in joining the membership community, let's get you on board. I'd love to hear from you personally and discover how we can help you and your workplace grow and excel. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me at bburka@michamber.com, and you can also find my contact information on our website. This event would not be possible without all of our 2023 sponsors, and so I'd like to recognize them. Please help me thanking our diamond sponsor, Lake Trust, our presenting sponsor, Consumers Energy, our gold sponsors, Amerisure, Hastings Mutual Insurance Company, and Perigo. Our silver sponsor, Ice Mountain and Lansing Board of Water and Light. Our supporting sponsors, CATA and West Shore Bank. And our educational sponsor, Davenport University. We truly appreciate all of the support this year for all of our events in 2023. And do stick around because we have that special announcement coming from Davenport in just a few seconds. So as we move into the last event of 2023, this is our last virtual event, but the fun's not over yet. On September 20th at the University Club of MSU, we will be hosting our first in-person event since the pandemic. Many of you have requested an in-person event to help connect you with your Michigan Athena colleagues, and we listened. Our in-person leadership summit will include conversations and takeaways to help you create habits that cultivate confidence and develop your brand and leadership identity, building on a lot of what we talked about here today. You'll have the opportunity to hear motivational, life-changing personal stories, and not to mention, we're going to be providing free complimentary headshots and tons of networking opportunities. Tickets for this event are going quickly, so make sure that you get yours today as seats are limited. You can scan the QR code on your screen here, or you can visit www.michamber.com/miathena for more information. Now, lastly, before we get on to Davenport, we want to hear from you, so keep your eye out later today for an emailed survey from the Michigan Chamber. Please take a moment to provide that feedback so that we know how to improve and what you're looking for in our next year. Your input matters as we start creating that programming for next year, and we want to make it the best for you. Thank you for joining us for our last virtual event of 2023, and thank you for being a part of the Michigan Athena community. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Bergsma, Director of Learning and Development at the Davenport University, to announce our scholarship winner and the certificate of management winner. Lisa, take it away.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Bergsma, and as she shared, I'm the Director of Learning and Development for Davenport University. I'm thrilled to be joining the Michigan Athena community today for such an engaging and relevant conversation to women in every industry, as well as to announce today's winners. Davenport has been a longtime sponsor of Michigan Athena because Davenport believes in the importance of women in leadership positions and how women in power changes our world for the better. So now to the winners. First, I'd like to announce the winner of today's Davenport Certificate of Management registration. As was shared, this is one of our most popular leadership development programs. So the winner for a seat in our Certificate of Management program is Carrie Singley with United Bay Community Credit Union. So congratulations, Carrie. We appreciate your involvement in Michigan Athena and your commitment to women leaders across the state. Now, for our scholarship to the Michigan Athena Leadership Summit on September 20th. Our winner for that scholarship is Maddie Curley with Jackson. So congratulations, Maddie. I hope to see you at the in-person event. And I hope that the event motivates and inspires you. So I can't wait to see you there. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for Michigan Athena's last webinar of 2023. This community is so engaging, and we thank you for another incredible year. We hope to see you in September. So thank you, everyone.